It's about 9 a.m. on Tuesday, June 13th, 2023, and we're moving them to a new section. I was supposed to do this last night. Wasn't able to get to it in time, but so I'm giving them two cells 1 and 2 of the 4th section on the rotation that started on June 2nd. As we watch the cows and sheep come, wanted to point out a few comments. Number one, somebody accused me of killing my animals. True, I have killed animals. The first large animal that I killed was a cow that got sick, laid down, and couldn't get up. And after several days, she was in intense pain. Probably some kind of infection in the lungs because she's not able to properly breathe when she's laying down. And so I had to kill her. So the second animal I killed, large animal, was another cow that laid down, and rather than let it progress until the cow got infected, I decided to kill her then and there. That cow, I inspected the teeth, and her teeth were basically little buttons, tiny little buttons, smaller than a penny. So she had worn out her teeth to the point where she could no longer eat, so she was starving to death. That's why she laid down. So yes, I have killed animals. I do plan on killing more animals. Nature is a cycle. Animals are born and then they die, and I don't intend to waste the animals. I guess you guys call it waste. It really isn't waste because nature always uses everything for stuff. In this case, I intend to use some of the animal for feeding my family, myself, and my neighbors, and my friends and stuff. So I intend to convert this piece of ground into juicy steaks and hamburgers. And I intend to learn how to eat sheep too, because sheep are so good for the ground that if I can eat sheep and eat a lot of them, then I can potentially increase the productivity of this land even further. So that's my goal, is to increase the productivity of the land. A lot of you are paying attention to propaganda and misinformation and lies and deceptions out there. You were told that carbon dioxide is a pollutant, and that is a ridiculous lie, because carbon dioxide is indeed food for grass and trees and plants, and because everything in this earth depends on plant life, and plant life depends on carbon dioxide, sunlight, and water. We depend on carbon dioxide, and if carbon dioxide levels were to fall, we would all die. The entire planet would become a dead planet, just a giant rock with no life on it whatsoever. Maybe some bacteria that survives on hydrothermal energy, but the life that survives because of solar energy would not be possible without plenty of carbon dioxide to go around. Another lie you were told is that carbon dioxide levels are high. This is false. It is so ridiculously false, I don't know how to explain how false it is. Carbon dioxide levels are at a very low level. Geologically speaking, looking at the history of the earth and looking at geology and things like that to understand what happened a long time ago, we are so ridiculously low that many people are worried, myself included, that if levels were to fall much lower, this planet would not look anything like it does now. And I'm a big proponent of increasing carbon dioxide emissions. I think that we should be using carbon dioxide, the carbon cycle, to boost life on this planet. And the more carbon dioxide we have in the atmosphere, the greener it will become, the more solar energy we can trap and convert into food, the more people we can feed, the more animals we can feed, and the more beautiful nature will become. So that's what I want. Carbon dioxide is not a greenhouse gas. Such a thing is not physical, meaning it doesn't exist in the realms of physics. There is no scientific evidence for such a thing. There is no experiment you can do to measure how much of a greenhouse effect carbon dioxide has, or any other gas or chemical for that matter. The greenhouse effect is retarded. I don't know how else to explain it. There is no objective standard by which you can define the greenhouse effect, and there is no measurement you can make to quantify it. And every theory or idea that I've seen put forward that explains the greenhouse effect contradicts basic physics, what we know to be true through observation and experimentation. You must understand the greenhouse effect was invented by a man named Arrhenius back in the 1800s when thermodynamics was just being discovered. And so his ideas about heat and energy and how things work were based on concepts that were not any different than the legends of the Greek gods and the myths. The scientific understanding of how heat and energy actually works came quite a bit later after him, and his ideas of the greenhouse effect just don't survive those concepts. I don't want to be too technical about this, but I'm going to explain to you two basic principles that should help erase all misunderstandings about thermodynamics. The first basic principle is called the first law of thermodynamics, which is that energy is conserved. You can't create or destroy energy. Obviously, with the relativity, energy can convert to mass and back and forth. Regardless, if you ignore that for a minute, we're not dealing with the speed of light here, and we're not doing nuclear reactions, so we can ignore how energy and mass are related to each other when we're talking about regular temperatures at the Earth's surface. So energy is conserved. That means you cannot create energy and you cannot destroy it. It has to be transferred from one form or system to another. The second concept is that entropy must increase. Entropy is not a simple concept to understand. It's not a simple concept to explain why it works. Probably the easiest way to think of entropy is there is a certain amount of useful energy. By useful, I mean energy that can be used to do work, like moving objects, like running your car or a motor or something like that. And there's energy that can't be accessed, that can only be used for heat and temperature, right? And the idea is that eventually all the energy gets converted into a form where you can't use it anymore for anything but heat and temperature. So things just naturally heat up. And the reason why this is important is because of the concept of thermal equilibrium, where you take two things that have different temperatures and you bring them into thermal contact with each other, and eventually, after some amount of time has passed, they will reach the same temperature, right? And so the common explanation for the greenhouse gas and the greenhouse effect is that somehow the energy that comes from the sun and passes through the atmosphere is bounced back to the surface of the earth. Such a concept doesn't exist in thermodynamics. There's no such thing as bouncing back energy. You can do reflections and refractions and things like that with light, but not with heat. Okay, I'm taking way too much time trying to explain this. Regardless, when you sit down and try to figure out what the greenhouse effect they're describing is, you realize it doesn't mean anything. So carbon dioxide is not a greenhouse gas, and such a thing doesn't exist. The reason why the Earth is so much warmer than space has nothing to do with greenhouse gases, and has everything to do with the fact that as you get closer to the Earth, the potential energy of a particle decreases, and so that energy must go somewhere else because of the gravity. And so where does that energy end up? Well, it ends up in temperature. And you can go to the Grand Canyon yourself, and they have signs saying, hey, if you were to hike to the bottom of this canyon, know that down there the temperature is higher than it is up here. Okay, also if you get in an airplane and raise up your elevation, you can ask the pilot and say, how much does the temperature change based on elevation? And they're going to say, oh, that depends on humidity. Humidity, not greenhouse gases, not whether or not we're in sunlight, and not the cloud cover or anything else, but humidity. Why humidity? Because humidity changes how the air responds to energy, how its temperature changes with response to energy. And you can open up any chemical textbook and look up the chemical properties in terms of temperature for carbon dioxide and compare it with oxygen and nitrogen, which together is, I think, 99 or 98% of the atmosphere. And you will see that it has virtually the same properties. Carbon dioxide behaves almost exactly like nitrogen and oxygen. There's no difference. Why? Because carbon dioxide is aligned in a line. The two oxygens are on the left and right of the carbon atom, whereas water does behave differently in terms of energy and heat and temperature because it makes Mickey Mouse ears. It can rotate in different ways that carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and oxygen cannot. That's a long way to say that people who talk about greenhouse gases have no idea what they're talking about and are complete ignoramuses. And I will stand by that statement until my dying breath, because they are. All right, so let's talk about the carbon cycle really quick. What is the carbon cycle? It's carbon that's being passed through processes, and in passing through these processes, the carbon is carrying energy that can be used to do work, useful energy, energy that can be used to live, to grow, to do all sorts of useful things that we want to see animals do. It allows puppies to bark and play. It allows cows to walk and dance and moo. All these wonderful things can happen because of carbon. So what happens is we start with carbon in a very low energy state. That means that it doesn't have much energy to give to other things, certainly not much useful energy. And carbon in its lowest state is called carbon dioxide. If you take carbon and burn it and release all that energy, you get carbon dioxide. Just like nitrogen in its low energy state is N2, right? Nitrogen gas. So carbon dioxide needs energy. If it's going to carry carbon, that carbon is going to carry energy. And so what happens is it combines with some water molecules, and through some magic of quantum mechanics and sunlight, which sunlight is very special. It's not like the same light you have in your house. If you want to understand why, go ask your favorite dope head and say, hey, I'm going to buy some incandescent bulbs to grow weed in my house, and they will laugh at you because that's not the right kind of light. You need sunlight or certain kinds of light that you get from certain kinds of bulbs. Anyway, so that energy is absorbed by the carbon and is converted into a new form called sugar. What that is carbon and oxygen and hydrogen. Okay, and that sugar is converted into other useful things, including starches. It's used for proteins. It's used for all sorts of things that create life. And we, creatures that do not photosynthesize, and you could tell I'm not photosynthesis because I don't have the green color like this plant does. The green color comes from the chlorine atoms, the chlorophyll, that's used to convert sunlight into energy, useful energy. Well, we have to eat to get that energy. And so your favorite puppy has to eat something. Your cows have to eat something. And then their bodies can use the thing that they eat and burn it by combining it with oxygen, which is readily available in the atmosphere, 21%, 22% I think it is. And we call that process, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, it's the biological process that all animals use to burn energy. Even plants use it to burn the energy they stored. And the byproducts of that process, ooh, look, an egg. The byproducts of that process are, you ready for this? Water and carbon dioxide. There it is again, right? Ultimately, that's where the sugars and the things that the plant made end up, is back in the form of carbon dioxide, right? So Sugar is the fuel, and the output is carbon dioxide. In fact, when we take petroleum, which is mostly carbon and hydrogen, out of the ground, we put it in our engines and burn it. The byproduct, or the ultimate end product, is carbon dioxide. And plants use that carbon dioxide to create more sugar, with more sunlight and more water. And that's the carbon cycle. That is an incredibly important part of our life, and that's how we survive. That's how life is even possible. Carbon dioxide plays a critical role in that whole process. This is a long video, but I wanted to add 2 other notes. There is also the nitrogen cycle. There is other chemicals and elements that get processed by biological animals. The nitrogen cycle is quite a bit more complicated. We are surrounded in the atmosphere with 78% nitrogen, but that nitrogen is in a very low energy state like carbon dioxide. And so there needs to be some process that can convert that nitrogen into other forms that can be used. Now, nitrogen is important because proteins require nitrogen. We can't have proteins without nitrogen. So nitrogen is also a building block of life. There's other elements too, just like that, which exist all around us, generally in an unusable state. And thanks to the things that are living below our feet, the bacteria and funguses, well, there's a big horsefly. Did I get it? Oh my goodness, that was big. Anyway, thanks to the things that are living beneath our feet, they are using the energy that comes from the sugars that the plants generate, and they are creating those elements in a usable form. We might say they're freeing it up or exposing it or whatever. Regardless, there's a lot more going on than just photosynthesis. If I were to take a plant in isolation and grow it in isolation, like hydroponics or something like that, it would not create everything that's needed for life, and it wouldn't sustain life. It might do it temporarily. This is why I think it's kind of laughable when people say, oh, we're just going to go to Mars and we're going to use hydroponics. No. There's so much more going on. Things that we are just now beginning to understand here in the 21st century. And we've been studying it for over 300 years. And we still don't even understand what's going on. In fact, the best way to farm, as far as I can tell, is to let nature do her thing and just get out of the way. No nitrogen, no fertilizers. Just let nature run its course, because somehow nature has survived this whole time without reading a single science textbook. And I don't know who was mining the natural gas and creating nitrogen fertilizers in the past, but apparently nature was able to get along for a long time without anyone doing that, as far as I can tell, unless the Aztecs or something had a secret petroleum distillery inside their temples that we don't know about. Maybe the Egyptians were doing it, and that's how life was sustained, was through those industrial processes that we just don't know about. No, I'm being silly. The reality is that nature is perfectly competent at solving her own problems. We are a part of that nature, and when we have problems, we need to look to nature for answers. And the idea that we're able to understand what nature does is laughable at best. The more we learn about nature, the more we realize how little we know. The more we learn, the more we realize how wrong we were. That's the funny part, is ignorance is bliss, but no one is more ignorant than the knowing man. So therefore I encourage you to seek knowledge, but temper that knowledge with humility and faith that you're not the first person on planet Earth, and these problems have always existed, and that nature has always found a way. Nature, by the way, is capital N. If you don't know why, it's because nature is an expression of God's divine will, that this earth and this universe is not a mistake. It's not random chance. It does use random processes, I admit, but this is a manifestation of God's will. the trees, the cows, the grass. For some reason, he created nature in such a way that I have to come out here and move the cows twice a day. And he created grass, and he created rain, and he created dirt and bacteria and soil. And I do not understand that reason, because God is a little bit smarter than I am, at least a little bit, maybe a lot. I can't really know for sure. But anyway, that's what I have for you guys now today. Don't eat the bugs. Let the chickens eat the bugs. Let nature create the bugs. You don't need a bug factory. You don't need nitrogen. You need manure, lots and lots of manure. You need cows that eat grass that humans can't eat. You need sunlight. You need rainfall. Rain's important. By the way, this rainstorm, I had to pay a lot of money for this rainstorm. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't have to pay anything. It came for free. And all this water, it's in the field. You know, I'm stealing it. I'm stealing it from somebody else, right? No, it's free. Nobody wants it. Nobody's coming to my farm and saying, give me your rainwater, right? Same for the grass, you know. Well, maybe they might say, hey, would you bale that as hay and sell it to me? You know, but this is all free. Free and clear. Look at the water running. This always amazes me. You see how clear that water is? This is water running off my pasture. Just water, nothing else. All the nutrients are staying behind. The grass is acting like a filter. And the soil is staying in place. What a beautiful day it is. I'm so happy to be alive. Guys, have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.